Memorial Day or something, or because it's Christmas.
Were people wondering if we were going to be here?
I think so.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Yeah, you don't get to take the day off. Everything's closed.
Disrespectful.
And, I seen my man Keith down at the Spartan Smoothie. He's open.
Well, of course
because he knew we was coming, because he knew we would be here.
Yeah, that smoothie's going to be good here in a second. So.
Yeah.
Be good.
So welcome back to Monday Meeting. If you've never been here for Monday Meeting, we're going through the book of Matthew right now. We're finishing up 16 and moving into 17 today. It's just the three of us, the three amigos here. Chili don't like to talk about it when Chad's out of town, do you?
Talk about what?
Wouldn't like if he's out of town.
I don't like to talk about him being out of town?
Yeah, you like, that's not important. We got to talk about things that are important.
I don't really know what you're getting at. I mean,
every time I say, Chad's not here, you say, don't worry about that. We got other things to talk about.
Well, he's gone again.
Yep. So we're not going to put too much banter at the beginning of this because we got the 307 comms check coming up. First one coming at you today. Not going to be live, but going to be on Patreon.
Yeah, that's where the banter will be.
So
if Blake's already started with me.
If you want to hear what we're learning through the week, what we're learning in our lives, things that are happening, the behind-the-scenes stuff, especially on Chili. I know a lot of y'all want to get a little more into his personal life and how he lives.
Good luck.
That's going to be on Patreon.
Well,
what are we calling that?
Well, he called it the
307 comms check.
Comms check, but nobody knows what that means. So we're basically sharing our lesson of the week.
But when you call something that nobody knows, it can be whatever you want it to be.
Yeah. I mean, comms check. Well, what does that mean? What are you going to talk about?
We're checking our comm, make sure our mics are working.
Yeah. I mean, what is it? A 20-minute podcast where we just go.
I'm looking forward. I think it's going to be good.
Oh, it is going to be good.
Yeah.
We'll give it a first shot here. Chad's not here.
Oh, he ain't?
No. So that's good.
Again?
It's good when we start something new and he's not here.
Right.
So basically,
we got to have him, Bub.
I'm just saying, if you tune in for the first 3 of 7 comms check and then you tune in for the second one, they may look wildly different because I have a feeling he's not going to – he's going to take issue with some way that we conduct it and change it once he's here. So, that's fine.
Yeah. 3 against 1,
This may be the best one we've ever done.
He brings a lot of – I mean, he's good at what he does, but if he's not here, we can manage.
Yeah, this could be the best one. We may come out of the gate with the best comms check.
We might finish the book of Matthew today.
Whoa. That ain't going to happen, bub.
So what was y'all talking about a minute ago, you and Dad, Corn?
Oh, it was talking was talking where
Joker hit that proper voice.
Where Matthew 16 ends, and specifically in
verse Romans.
Well, he talks in riddles. Where Matthew 16 ends, and Jesus says, "Assuredly I say to you, there are some standing here who shall not taste death till they see the Son of Man coming in his kingdom." It just ends there, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you pop over to 17, the first verse, and it talks about how, who is it? Peter, I think.
Well, you can read it. Peter, James, and John.
Well, I wasn't trying to read the whole thing, Chili. Peter, James, and John go up to the mount with Jesus, and Jesus is transfigured before them.
Mm-hmm.
And Moses and Elijah are there.
So what are you getting at about the verses?
That possibly there shouldn't be a space in between 16 and 17.
Whoever split it up did a poor job
Who
right
done
there.
that?
I don't know who decided to split all that up. I mean, that's good, but I do like reading without it.
Yeah, right. Well, you've got that one book that doesn't have it.
Yeah.
When you read it, did you read it split up, or did you read it like that?
No, I read it right on through.
Well, what issue do you take with the partition there?
Oh, it's not that I have an issue.
Oh.
It just it made me think. Okay, so Jesus said, "Assuredly I say to you, there are some standing here who shall not taste death."
Yeah.
And he was talking to the disciples, right?
Right.
And that could be sort of confusing, like, there's some here that's going to see, the Son of Man coming into his kingdom.
If you stop it there, you're like, what do you mean? Some of you are going to see me coming. But if you continue reading, you see that he's talking about the transfiguration. Some of you are going to see the transfiguration.
Right, exactly.
But if you just stopped it there and you said, I'm going to pick up on 17 next week, I done read 16.
Yeah, exactly.
Then you say, some of them's going to see him come back to earth.
Right.
Or something like that. It kind of, I see what you're saying.
That partition, as you said, may be there because it's now after 6 days. I mean, there's a 6-day gap that Matthew doesn't have nothing in here about. Maybe that's why it's there.
Yeah.
So 28 is basically the start of chapter 17.
I would agree.
Yeah.
Well, but it goes with the conversation he was just I mean, it's, there's a block of text there that he was speaking to the disciples, and that's what he said there.
Yeah.
I mean, he meant it for that time, you know.
And before the 6 days of unknowing what went on.
And then we get into this transfiguration. This is a pretty pivotal moment, right?
It's bizarre to me. What's going on?
Yeah.
I mean,
what is the significance of this transfiguration?
Well, it's a big deal, but to skip ahead and talk, on an elementary level, it's bizarre. And they immediately want to make 3 tabernacles there, and that's just, it's so funny. You try to put yourself in their shoes, and it's so hard to fully do that.
Yeah.
But, and they're like, why is that your initial reaction?
Yeah.
Let's make 3 tabernacles for you, Moses and Elijah. Like, what? I mean, I would think, I would have expected this to talk more basically about the awe that they were in. And it does a little, but immediately, when that happens, who is it? Peter says, Lord, it is good for us to be here. It sounds so nonchalant.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It just sounds kind of like, okay, yeah, it's, so we're going to do this now. We're going to build 3. It's what? I mean, you would think it would just be this dramatic thing, and that's just not how I read it. I read it as almost a normal conversation.
Yeah.
It's just, I don't know, there's a lot to it.
And while he was speaking, the Lord cut him off.
Yeah.
It says while he was speaking, behold, a bright cloud overshadowed them, and suddenly a voice came out the cloud saying, this is my beloved Son, in whom I am well pleased. Hear him.
Yeah.
And that's when they fell on their faces.
Right. Yeah, I got some things to say about how they responded, but in verse 2, he was transfigured before them, and his face shone like the sun, and his garments became white as light. So it's like he was transfigured into his true nature, like him living on earth and people being able to see God in flesh, that is Jesus. He's almost having to withhold himself so that people can see him. Here, when he's transfigured, they can't even look at him, right? Because his face shone like the sun. You ever tried looking at the sun? Yeah, burn your eyeballs. But his garments as white as light. And behold, Moses and Elijah appeared to them. So the disciples are recognizing that this is Moses and Elijah. I don't know how. They've not ever seen Moses or Elijah. Maybe they were pictures of them, drawings of them. Somehow they recognized them.
Right.
And I read that Moses, the significance of it being Moses and Elijah was representing Moses as the law and Elijah as representing the prophets. And that his transfiguration was basically fulfillment of all of that. Like he met with them. And there's also scripture that says, is it further down where it talks about, where the disciples say, why do the scribes say Elijah must come first? And we'll talk about that in a minute. But it's a really brief account of a big thing that happened. I would have expected chapters to be on this.
Yeah.
But Matthew wasn't there, so I can only imagine that this is something that one of the 3 has told him after his resurrection, because Jesus instructs them not to tell anybody about this until after he's resurrected, right?
Right.
And so what I gather from this is that this is Jesus revealing a furtherance of his true nature to those disciples, but also fulfilling the law and the prophets by meeting with Moses and Elijah in some sort of way. Did y'all get anything different out of that?
Go ahead, Chill.
No, I don't have anything to say. I
have more to say about how the disciples responded.
Yeah.
But
stuff like that is just weird to me. Like it feels like all speculation because you can't point to a direct, like Jesus doesn't say flat out, here is why Moses and Elijah were with me. I mean, he does go on, like you said, to answer why Elijah must come first and all that, but it's still not just a flat out.
I think in one of the other Gospels, I'm pretty sure that it talks about what they was talking about. They was talking about Jesus' death.
Oh, okay.
I think. Yeah, I'd have to look that up. But yeah, I was sort of the same lines as you, Blake, that Moses represented the law, Elijah the prophets, and like God saying to them while Peter spoke up, like this a revelation from the Lord. This is my son who I'm well pleased. Hear him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and this same thing also happened right when he was baptized, right?
Right.
The clouds came, they split, and God said, "This is my son in whom I'm well pleased." I also read some commentary talking about that this was like another representation of the Trinity, the cloud being the Holy Spirit, God speaking, and Jesus being there transfigured. So maybe that was another kind of meaning for it. But it is something that we don't see anywhere else other than the same account in the other Gospels.
Yeah, it just brings to mind all the questions I have surrounding even being able to look at Jesus, because if Jesus is God in the flesh, my initial reaction is, well, how did anybody even get around him and look at him? Because that's God. I mean, if you were his disciples or anybody at the time, you were looking at, I mean, I know it's like you're talking about the Transfiguration, how it's different. He's withholding some of his glory. He's in an earthly body. But that's God. You're looking at God. You're not supposed to be able to really do that. Right. You know what I mean? That's crazy. But we see that obviously you can. But then when there's this moment and he's transfigured, that seems to be more of like, you're actually looking at him in his glory, not with hell. And they can still, it appears, look at him.
Yeah, degree.
To some degree. I mean, obviously they're not really seeing, they fall on their faces and it's like the sun, but they're still there in his presence. I mean, that's just crazy to me. It's hard to wrap your head around that, and how they could even do that without dying, is just because of him allowing them to, be there. It's interesting. And do you ever wonder why it was apparently just Peter, James, and John?
Yeah, I had wrote that down too, just as I don't know, but like, why did he just select those three? I'm sure there's some speculation that somebody has about this, and this, but they had, he had just selected those three, and then he let them know in verse 28 without them knowing. Basically, some of you are going to see this happen here soon.
Yeah.
And was basically telling the others, some of you ain't going to see it happen,
Yeah.
And you would think that the disciples, the other ones, might have been ticked about it.
Yeah.
Or envious, but he told them, hey, don't tell nobody about what happened up here till after the resurrection. I don't know why that was, but we'll talk about that in a minute. But as we go into verse 4, what you guys were talking about, this happens, and Peter responded and said to Jesus, Lord, it's good that we're here. It's good that we're here because we can build you these temples if you want. Thanks for bringing. We're going to build each one of you a tabernacle up here. And it just made me think about, Peter's always doing something silly like this. Speaking out of turn, acting out of turn. But us as humans, we always want to do something to feel worthy or to feel helpful, especially with God. We want to feel like we don't want to get what we deserve, but we want to feel like we earned what we got. We don't want to just get something for free. And that's what we see them doing here. They see this happen, and then they start to talk. Who's got anything to say when you're in the presence of God? It's good thing you brought us up here because we can build you a temple. I have to imagine that's what he meant. Like, it's good that we're here.
Yeah.
Let us build, I I'll make 3 tabernacles, one for each of you. And they had their mind totally on the wrong things, because he didn't care nothing about having a tabernacle built there. That's just material dwellings here on the earth. Right? That was Old Testament stuff. And they're kind of coming out of that. They're kind of still in that thought process of the Old Testament, because this is the transition period. But we do the same thing a lot of times. When something big happens, we say, well, how can I step in and help? Or what can I add? Or what can I do? When sometimes we just need to sit there. Because the things that God gives us, we're not worthy of anyways. There's nothing we can do to earn it.
Yeah.
And this whole works thing, we talk about it a lot, but it is it's a constant battle to recognize that what you do doesn't matter because of you doing it. It matters because of the inward change that happens in your heart. And so that's really stood out to me, that they spoke up and wanted to do something.
It's like, shut your mouth.
Acting like they could add to this thing that's going on. And like Corn said, while he was still speaking, they basically interrupted him and was like, hey, listen to Jesus. You don't have anything to say.
That's right.
You just need to hush.
I mean, what was the purpose to make a tabernacle for them? Like, what was the cultural significance behind even the impulse to say, okay, you 3 are here and you mean this much and you have this significant, like, almost you need a place to be, I don't know, housed, or you need a place to be worshipped at. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
why was that his impulse, I wonder? I mean, I get, like, okay, he had an impulse to do something.
Yeah.
I get it. I mean, I think that's a natural.
Well, yeah, we do. That's what I'm saying.
That's what we all do. That's human nature. But why did he go to that? A tabernacle.
Right.
I don't really know the answer to that. I mean, either. I get the impulse he had.
Yeah.
I resonate with that. But why was it a tabernacle? There must be some.
I think it was just to honor them. Like, why did they build the tabernacle in the Old Testament? A place that they could honor God, that they could be in his presence, and he could be God, and they could be human, and this was the place that they kind of met.
Yeah.
The Holy of Holies, all of those things that were in the tabernacle. His mind probably just went to, we don't deserve to be here, but we want to be here. Let us build you a tabernacle so that we can dwell with you on this mountain in this place.
Yeah, the place where Jesus, Moses, and Elijah all met up atop of this mountain.
Yeah.
I think I've never been there. In Israel, there's all kinds of places like where Jesus was ascended. There's 2 or 3 maybe churches, or I don't want to speak out of, like, I know what I'm talking about, but everywhere there's some type of historical significance or meaning, I think there is something built there.
A building there.
Yeah.
Yeah. I also wonder just the reverence that they at the time had for I hate when I can't think of a word, just the significant figures of the faith, like Moses and Elijah. We don't really have that. I mean, we're not Jewish, but we obviously read the Old Testament as truth, just like
they're kind of just another character in the Bible.
To us, they're just another person.
Even
Abraham.
I mean,
exactly. He is it.
Yeah.
And he's just Abraham, like, a man. But I'm not saying they were putting them on the same level as Jesus. Although, in a way, they kind of, they really viewed Moses, Elijah, Abraham, all those figures differently than we do.
Yeah.
I mean,
that's a good point.
They really do. I mean, I'm not trying to make a claim they were trying to worship them or anything like that, but it's just a stark difference in how we treat those figures. You hear of Moses and we think, that's a forefather of the faith, and look at what he did, and but we don't have the same reverence, or even if we had an impulse to build a tabernacle for Jesus right there, we wouldn't think so with Moses. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
because he's not on the same level at all, and I don't think he was to them either. But it's just interesting how far they go to honor, Abraham and figures like that. So I don't know.
And then we move down, so they respond this way, and when the disciples heard God say that, they fell to their face onto the ground and were terrified, almost like they had just been scolded.
Yeah.
And Jesus came to them and touched them and said, "Get up and do not be afraid." And then when they looked up, they saw nobody but Jesus. So at this point, he has, I guess, came back to his human self. Because after this, Jesus was there alone, and then the next verse is when they were coming down the mountain. So now all this has happened. Now they're walking back down the mountain with him. And Jesus commanded them, said, "Tell no one until the Son of Man has risen from the dead." And at this point, they probably still didn't quite know what that meant.
Which is odd to think about, but I think that's true.
Yeah. I don't think they really fully grasped what was going to happen. Jesus had kind of hinted around at his resurrection in roundabout ways, but Peter says, "Surely that's not going to happen to you." We read that, I think, last week.
Right, I was thinking of when Peter said that, and also thinking about, other than that, kind of the lack of response that you get recorded of when he would say those things. It's almost as if he said those things, and I don't know if that was a conversation or not, but it just kind of moves on. I mean, Peter had that reaction then, but like he's hinted to it many times, and it's just kind of like they're like, "Yeah, all right," and and you're thinking he's telling you what's going to happen, and you're not getting it or even really responding to it. And I have to think that even after this one, they still, because he says, "Tell the vision to no one until I rise from the dead." And his disciples asked him, "Why then do scribes say that Elijah must come first?" Like, there's still no, I would have said, "What do you mean?"
It's a weird response.
Are you saying you're about to die? Like, what? Because that's what I thought a minute ago, and you scolded Peter for, what did...
Hey, don't tell nobody about this till I come from the dead. Why'd they say Elijah had to come first?
Right.
Yeah.
And this Elijah coming first, if we look back to Matthew 11:14, it says, "And if you are willing to accept it, John," speaking of John the Baptist, "himself is Elijah who was to come." And so, but then if you can also read where John the Baptist is asked, "Are you the prophet Elijah?" Because Elijah never died, right? Well, he was just called up to heaven, right?
Yeah.
Isn't that right, Paris James? So they're expecting, like, this guy isn't dead. Like, he's going to have to come back and die, I think is how they're thinking of this. And John says, "No, I'm not the prophet Elijah."
Right.
And then here we have Jesus saying, "Well, he is," but I think it's more figurative than it is literal. I think John, in his humble nature, is saying, like, "No, I'm not the great prophet Elijah. I'm not literally him," and humbly saying, "I'm not figuratively him. He is better or, higher than I." But Jesus is telling him, "No, that was the prophet Elijah to come to fulfill that prophecy."
Right. That discrepancy is confusing, but it does seem like it could be as simple as he is truly not Elijah of the Old Testament. But when that prophecy said he's coming first, that's who it was talking about.
Yeah.
It just said Elijah. Well, you see what I'm saying?
Yeah. Like, it was. I can't remember where it's at when Zechariah, the angel, was it Gabriel, come to him and said, "Your wife is going to have a baby, and he's going to come with the spirit and power of Elijah."
Yeah.
And Zechariah was like, "I don't believe that." And he was like, "Well, if you don't believe it, you don't get to talk till he shuts up."
Yeah, he shut his mouth till he was born.
But he was told that John was going to come with the spirit and power of Elijah. He didn't say he was going to be Elijah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good point, Corn, and I think that adds to what Jesus is saying here. And the only reason I could think John would deny it would be one of two reasons. One, like Chili said, he's literally not Elijah, or he understood it, and he was in his humble nature is just saying, no, don't put me on that level.
Right.
But Jesus tells us that he was in fact him. And so the disciples are asking why, and Jesus answered and said, Elijah is coming and will restore all things. But I say to you that Elijah has already came, and they did not recognize him, but did to him whatever they wanted. So also the Son of Man is going to suffer at their hands. And so again, he's just continuing to prophesy to them about what is to come.
I don't want to get too into fringe theories, but, obviously we've said many times things that are impossible, like somebody living, thousands of years, right? That's never happened. That's impossible. But then when you go, well, is it actually impossible? Well, nothing is impossible when you're talking about what God can do. Right. So is it possible that was Elijah that John the Baptist was literally Elijah, the same person just down? I mean, you can't say no, it's impossible. But like I said, I don't want to get too into fringe theories, but there is John the Revelator, John who wrote Revelation. I'm not even going to try to find the actual verse, but there's some textual evidence in Revelation that indicates that John is still alive today because he's going to be alive until Jesus comes back. Now, I've always dismissed that. A, I don't really think that the text supports that theory. B, I've always said, well, that's impossible anyway. It's probably not it's probably incorrect to say that's impossible.
Yeah.
But it's just the reason I brought it up is because I would immediately dismiss that as saying, well, no, that's not literally Elijah, but I mean, it could be.
Yeah.
Yeah,
you don't know.
But if that brings me back to Jesus' Transfiguration, and it says, and behold, Moses and Elijah appeared to them. I mean, that would be Moses and John the Baptist. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. It's just it's all just crazy. The connectedness of it and the symbolism, because I view it as John as maybe not a symbol, but Elijah in the sense of what the prophecy was predicting. It wasn't saying literally Elijah, but his continuation, I guess. I don't know.
Well, this would have meant a lot to the Jew that read it. Like,
exactly.
If the Jew of the time that was reading this was sitting here right now, he would call all of us dummies and say, you don't get what he's saying.
Yeah,
There's so much
100%.
that we're missing. But for whatever reason, God has preserved this book of Matthew and this scripture for us even here today. And what I get from it is just a further understanding of his nature, of the nature of God, and that he was, because that's what Matthew's trying, like, that's his point. We got to remember, that's his point of writing this whole book, is to convince the Jew that Jesus was in fact the Messiah because of their denial of that, many of them denying that he was. And the fact that he met with Moses and Elijah and the three other eyewitnesses of this account would have been significant to them. And it's still significant to us today, just not in a different level than it would have been to them. And I always like these verses. 13 kind of wraps it up. Then the disciples understood that he had spoken to them about John the Baptist. So it's like, then they got it. And then it just shifts.
Yeah, I thought the same thing. I was like, so he went, explained all those parables to them, and they was like, what's this parable mean? And what's this parable mean? And what do you mean when you said this? And what do you mean when you said this? And he just explains this simply. And then the disciples understood he spoke to them of John the Baptist.
Well,
I was like, they didn't hardly understand nothing. And then all of a sudden they understood that.
Yeah. But that goes along with what one of you brought up and the other reinforced, is that the Jews at the time they understood this a heck of a lot better than we are.
Right, yeah,
this.
absolutely.
So like when he said that about Elijah, we're missing some stuff that they were like,
I agree.
Yeah. That's John the Baptist.
Yeah.
I mean, but the only reason I knew it was John the Baptist is because it says, then the disciples understood it was John the Baptist.
Exactly. That was my thought. I was like, well, I didn't get that from that. And I was sort of feeling good about the parables myself, and they was asking questions, but they understood this. They whooped the far out of me on that.
And then Matthew just changes gears to a whole nother scene now, to a whole nother subject. If you was going to split this up, 17 would have started right there.
Thank you.
17 would have started in verse, 14.
Yeah, thank you.
That's probably where the Immersed Bible starts a new section. So verse 14 says, when they came to the crowd, a man came up to Jesus, falling on his knees before him, saying, Lord, have mercy on my son, because he has seizures and suffers terribly, for he often falls into the fire and often into the water. That's kind of weird. Yeah. Fire in the water. And I brought him to your disciples, and they could not cure him. And Jesus answered and said, you unbelieving and perverse generation, how long shall I be with you? How long shall I put up with you? Bring him here to me. Who do you think he was talking to when he said that? Was it the Father or was it the disciples?
Well, I think he was talking to the old faithless and perverse generation, wasn't he? I mean,
but who was he directing that to?
How long shall I be with you? I mean, I think
just the world.
Just how long shall I be on earth?
Yeah.
I mean, how long am I going to dwell amongst this?
Is he ill because the disciples didn't know how to cast him out, or because this man had another problem to bring to him? I mean, he kind of scolds his disciples, in a few verses later, or not really, but they're like, why can't I cast him out? And he tells them how. But I had always thought he was talking to the disciples, but it could be that he was talking. I mean, I guess it's not extremely significant, but.
Well, I mean, I think he's just speaking to the unbelief of the generation, like including the disciples. Yeah. Because he, like you said later, he says, because of your unbelief, talking to the disciples.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's just the disciples' unbelief. I mean, it's just in totality. He's like, this dude came to me again, and he's, another person coming to me seeking healing, and he doesn't really even believe that I can do it. Like,
yeah.
And the disciples, they ask me why they fail, and they don't believe that they can call on the power of the Lord and cast this demon out. Like, what the crap is going on? How long am I going to dwell amongst this? And
right. And this also shows, like, I get aggravation out of this when I read that with the, the words that are used here that Jesus said. Like, I kind of get that he was aggravated.
Yeah.
And it shows, when I always read things like this, it shows his humanity, like the part of him that was flesh, the part of him that was man, that he did experience those emotions and those feelings. We read about him being sad and angry in the temple and feeling these different emotions, because we can think a lot of times that, oh, well, that's just Jesus. Like, of course he did that. He's Jesus, but we forget that he was somehow fully man and fully God at the same time. And so those frustrations and aggravations that we have, we think, well, Jesus didn't really have that. He was God, and he just kind of dealt with things because he had the ability to tap into this supernatural power, which he didn't use, right? We see many times, or at least once, where he says, don't you know I could call in legions of angels?
Yeah.
And take care of all this right now? Like, this has to happen?
Well, it's strange, too, because he's able to experience anger, I suppose, any emotion, but not sin.
Yeah, exactly.
And I don't believe anger in and of itself is a sin. I mean, I think that's crazy.
Right. No.
But oftentimes you will get angry and then sin.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I'm saying? And he avoided that, which I don't understand how he avoided that.
Right.
Every time throughout all of his life, never, how did that not? Because we just don't have that ability. I mean,
right.
we're
not fully God.
Yeah, it's like not an excuse, but we can't not turn it into something
every time.
That's sin.
Yeah.
So
he basically tells them, what the crap, guys? How long do I have to be here with you? And Jesus rebuked him, and the demon came out of him, and the boy was healed at once.
Well, that's interesting too. Like the guy didn't come to him and say, my son's demon possessed.
No.
He said he's having seizures.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Isn't that, I mean,
yeah.
Like I would, until it says Jesus called the demon out of him, I didn't think he had a demon. I thought he just had an ailment.
Well, we see that a few different times in the Bible where people are bringing the sick to them and they're actually demon possessed, which I guess is a sickness.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, it's a spirit. I mean, maybe you'd call that a spiritual sickness. And
maybe the falls into the fire and the water is a little bit different than just having seizures. There's all kinds of people that have various bouts with epilepsy.
Right.
But that almost, when you read back, gives you an indication that like maybe the demon was trying to freaking cast him into the fire and water. Lose control of himself, have a seizure, and I don't know. It'd have been very interesting to see what that presented itself like.
Yeah. Then the disciples came to Jesus privately and said, "Why could we not cast it out?" And he said, "Because of your meager faith. For truly I say to you that if you have faith the size of a mustard seed, you will say to this mountain, 'Move from here to there,' and it will move, and nothing will be impossible for you." Those are pretty big words.
Yeah.
Faith the size of a mustard. I mean, everybody knows that verse.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's good. I mean, it's you obviously can't take that to mean you're going to do whatever that you believe you can do or anything like that. But I mean, it's really powerful because I think a lot of people, including myself, feel like, at least at times, I definitely ain't any more than that.
Yeah.
I don't have it, I definitely don't have much. If that, I don't have more than a mustard seed,
Right.
But it just, I don't know. I mean, not to take anything out of context, but that's a very uplifting verse for anybody in that situation because it doesn't downplay that or minimize you or ridicule you for only having that small amount of faith. It actually indicates how significant it is.
Yeah.
And like how powerful it is. It really does the opposite of how most people feel. When you feel like, man, I don't have much faith at all. I'm struggling. I doubt this. That you almost feel guilt and embarrassment over that.
Yeah.
And shame.
Yeah.
But it's literally, I mean, he is telling you the exact opposite. Like, if you've got that much faith, that's a big deal.
Yeah.
Like, not take pride in it, but don't feel ashamed of that.
Yeah.
I mean, you have faith. Basically, you should feel bad about having zero faith,
Yeah. Yeah, that's true.
I mean, I don't know. It's just, to me, that's an uplifting thing for somebody that's struggling. And it's not, like I said, definitely don't misconstrue that to say take pride in that or that you should, or that it's not good to have a lot of faith but.
Well, I think it's also a humbling verse.
Oh, yeah.
Because I have to imagine the disciples at this point had been with Jesus for a while and they thought,
he's telling them,
I got this. Like, yeah, he's sick, bring him here. I got this. And then they're like, dang.
Yeah.
We don't got this. Why couldn't we get him out? And he's like, because your meager faith.
Yeah.
Right. If you just had the faith this much, you could do this big thing. But it's still not humiliating, like you said. It's like, it's almost like a humbling thing. Like, you think you've got a lot, you don't have really as much as you think you have. So I think it can go both ways according to where you're at,
For sure.
If you think if you're downtrodden and you think I don't have hardly any faith, then this, like Chili said, can kind of uplift you in a way. But if you're on the other end, then you need to realize maybe you ain't quite the man of faith that you thought you were.
Yeah. This whole thing, what it made me think is like how much, and I'm not saying that demons have this divine power over us, that we have Jesus, right? So, but how much is that actually acknowledged, you know, like when you see somebody sick or with anything, do you think, dang, this joker right here might have a demon?
Oh, yeah.
I have thought that before.
Well, it's funny you brought that up because I was just thinking about that, but I thought we were about to just move on. I was going to let it go.
Yeah.
But when you read this, it kind of presents two options for the world today. Either we don't have as much demon possession as they had back then, or we discount a lot of things as other explanations when it really is that's kind of the root cause that you should be addressing. Yeah. It's one of the two.
Right.
But you know what? You go up to somebody and you say, yep, you got this sickness. And they're like, all right. Or you go up to somebody and you say, you got a demon? They say, no, that's offensive.
Right, yeah.
And nobody wants to say that.
Yeah, you're right.
Because when you say that, it's offensive. And then guess what else? If you're the one saying that, you better also be able to do something about it.
Yeah, you're right.
Oh, yeah,
and
100%. Who's willing to start addressing that?
I mean, I know what the Bible says about casting out demons and faith. I've never done it. I'm not saying I couldn't do it, but I don't know what that would look like.
Right.
I would do it in faith believing, but
so I'm sure that might have been how the disciples looked at this one. Like he come up and he's getting thrown in fire and water and everything else, and it may have been look completely different than the other ones. And they was like, "Whoa, now either this joker's got a demon and we can't deal with it, or you know." And it doesn't talk like, "Hey," that they come to him and say, "Hey, we got a problem with this one boy here. We can't do nothing with him." Yeah. Now the father had to come to Jesus and say, they couldn't do nothing with him. I need your help.
Yeah. Well, do you think that a professing believer, follower of Jesus, can be possessed by a demon?
Oh, no, I think that's clear. I don't know how you could be. I mean, if you have the indwelling of the Holy Spirit, that's. I don't
think
that's an
so
impossibility.
Either, but there are people that do believe that.
That you could still?
Yeah.
That's interesting.
I think you could be oppressed.
Yeah.
Like being bothered.
Well, yeah.
I think that's true, but
true demon possession, my understanding is if you are possessed by the Holy Spirit.
Right, exactly.
So no, there's no room for that.
Yeah.
There's no opening.
Yeah. I agree.
To be truly possessed. I
agree.
Yeah, it doesn't mean you're not going to be tempted or tormented look at Job, you know? He was as close to God as anybody, and
that dictates how we deal with that, you know, because unless the person professing to have the Holy Spirit in fact does not, then they're not possessed.
Yeah.
So this person that came to Jesus must have been an unbeliever, this kid, you know?
Yeah.
So just thinking about, you know, steps in which to look at that and assess that in today's world.
Well, I think the whole demon thing is highly overlooked.
Yeah.
That's why I said it's two options.
Yeah.
It's not as prevalent, or
right.
we discount it every time.
I think it's like Blake said, because nobody wants to say. Now, I've told somebody that I believe you got a demon, but I didn't go no further than that. I was like, what you're doing, like, there's a demon messing with you.
They didn't like that, did they?
No, they didn't like it at all. And it's somebody in my family. And I still think she's got one. I really do.
Yeah.
100%.
Sorry for laughing, but you know how funny you are. Along that same line, because I think it's important, one reason that I view that differently today, and maybe wrongly, that it's less prevalent, is because I see so much of the if you want to call it sects of Christianity or certain groups of people that like casting out demons is common. I mean, that is common in some circles today. But I see all the freaking bullcrap with it. And you go like, okay. You know, you see these people that will engage in that, and, you know, like they'll go lay hands on specific people, and I'm not talking speaking the name of the, I'm talking like these ritualistic ceremonial things of casting out, and it's just fake as crap.
Yeah.
Like they're a lot of times glorifying themselves, and it's weird, So that will taint your view of it today, because you're like, well, that's
whacked out.
It's just not.
Well, the truth always lies with these spiritual things in the middle. The truth is not that there is no demon possession today, and the truth is also not that everybody that's sick has a demon. But Satan would have you believe one or the other, because they're both wrong. But the truth lies in the middle. And people are quick today to say, oh, the devil's got me. He making my life hard, And they think there's a demon behind every bush. Every obstacle they come up against is just the devil. Yeah. He's just out to get them. Got diabetes because the devil's after you. Not
sugar demon got on you.
Not because you've been eating like a freaking hog for 15 years. Oh, he really got me down. I got bad knees. I got diabetes.
The devil made Krispy Kreme is what you're telling me.
Yeah. So that's one extreme of it. Right. That's not possession, but nobody wants to claim possession or say that, but they want to claim I'm being, it's a demon got
like
me.
You said, there is an important distinction between possession and oppression.
Yeah.
I mean, so you definitely would have more of an argument to say, well, I'm being, tormented here than possessed.
Yeah.
But I agree with what you're saying is even to say that I'm like, we're often real loose and flippant with when we say we're being oppressed by the devil. Like, it could just be that you're making bad choices.
Yeah, you've made poor life choices all your life, and now it's catching up with you. The devil's not
why you have diabetes.
Yeah, if the devil is getting you, he got you for the last 15 years when you decided you was going to be a glutton, fat, and eat all of that crap. Now you got diabetes. Well, I think that's a good spot to wrap it up for the day. What do y'all think?
What? How long have we been going?
About 50 minutes.
Yeah, we got that comms check.
Yeah, we got 10 more minutes. I mean, we can't even get through 17 when Chad's not here.
Well, y'all got to talking a lot. Y'all's pulling up Chad's slack.
That's ridiculous. All right, fine. So basically, according to Blake, chapter 16 goes all the way through 17, verse 13. Chapter 17 is verse 14 through 21, and then 22 starts 18.
Hold on
That's
now.
what Blake's telling me.
Hold on now. Look here.
What?
In my Bible, this is the New King James. I've got
this is too, right?
Verse 19, 20, and then 22. There's no Matthew 17, verse 21. Huh. Do y'all have that?
Yeah, I got it.
You got 21?
Yeah.
What's it say?
However, this kind does not go out except by prayer and fasting.
Yeah.
Mine says, verse 20 says, and he said to them, because of your meager faith, faith the size of a mustard seed, you say this mountain move from here to there, and it will move, nothing being impossible for you. Verse 22, and while they were gathering together in Galilee.
Good night.
Really?
It left it out. Now you've got a demonic copy right there.
What does verse 21 allow?
However, this kind does not go out except by prayer and fasting. Huh. You don't even have that text in there.
Let me see here.
Let me see.
He has got a demonic copy.
Look here, down at the bottom it says, late MSS.
Late manuscripts, yeah.
Add traditionally verse 21. But this kind of not go out except by prayer and fasting.
Well,
wait, hold on. No. Wait. This is the NASB. That's why, because
this is New King James.
Yeah, that has the old manuscripts that was added by some other scribe that was not in the original manuscript. That's what.
But that's red letters right there.
Well, somebody wrote it in, penciled it in. Have to go look at West Hub for that.
All I'm saying is there's a demonic copy sitting around here somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah. How about that? So,
I'm glad we kept going. I mean, you just
So we're not picking up in 21 because there ain't no 21. We're picking up in 22.
Easy, bub. You reading some false gospel.
22. All right. Thank you guys for tuning in for Monday meeting. If you got anything out of this, if you liked it, share it with folks. Subscribe to the channel. Tell them all about it. We love you.
Comms check next.
Comms check next. We love you and we need you.